Hello and welcome to my channel. Well, today I'm going to answer a fairly simple question. If you are a Rekon fan like myself and you have got your hands on one of the fabulous long-range Rekon 5 units, this here is just about my daily flyer. Lots and lots of fun and filled with all the goodies inside. Or you've got the Rekon 3, the 18650, which I shall quickly plug to recently modifying the VTX antenna on the rear, and has given this little unit a whole new lease of life, so check out that video. And while we're quickly pointing at the top corner of the screen, check out my Rekon 5 video as well. I won't talk about that too much because that's not why we're here. So my question was right at the start, if you have the Rekon 5 and you think it's just a little bit too big for what you want to do, and you've got the Rekon 3 and you think it's just a little bit small for what you want to do, what should you do? You're missing a number in the middle, and that would be the Rekon 4. You got it, guys, the new Rekon 4. So let's crack open the Rekon 4 box. Let's go through some text and specs and let's have a look and see what you get. Nice, two sets of props to start with. These are the 40-24 Hurricanes. These are the ones I think I will be flying with. Let's take out the nice foam packaging. Color directions, be careful of those. They often change post-production, so yeah, just have a look on Betaflight and make sure you've got her spinning correctly. You also get some floppy proppies. So these are the Gemfan, pretty much the same as the Hurricane 40-24s, but these fold, so not too sure about the efficiency of these, but I'll certainly test them out. Mount here for our little SMO camera. I've actually got a Firefly, check it out there guys, Firefly camera coming. I'm hoping it's here by the time I get this thing flying, so I can show you guys the new Firefly camera, which is awesome. A couple of exactly the same length LiPo straps, some screws, nice little HGLRC 5.8 hammer, right hand circular polarized, because it's the same length as the Rekon 5 FPV antenna. Some Rekon stickers, flight controller, wiring up diagram, which is always pretty good, nice and easy to read. The quad itself, so I will go through some text and specs quickly guys, have a quick chat about it, and then I'm going to put it on Betaflight and show you guys what needs to be set up in Betaflight before we hook up the props and take it for a spin. Like I said, this is the dead cat frame. If you're unsure what people are talking about when they refer to the dead cat frame, well, it sort of does look a bit like a dead cat. So your front arms are more or less out on the 90 degrees from the frame, which enables you to not have props in view, which is a really good idea. 4-inch frame, they say 3 to 6S power supply LiPo on this. It has got an XT30. Straight away you can see there's a couple of dangly wires up the front and rear, so they've nicely included your power supply for your camera up the front should you wish to go down that path. And this is the version without any receivers, so it's also included some wiring for your receiver, whatever you decide to go for. I'm obviously going for the TBS Crossfire here with the Model T antenna, which they've nicely included a mount up the front there, so I shall be installing that. F7 flight controller folks, 20x20 stack, which is really decent on this size unit, 20 amp PSCs. So you can fly this little cracker on either a 3 to 6S LiPo. However, I would probably stick to around the 4S range or the ZOHD 18650 line pack. If you are going to the 6S, I would recommend changing the motors because they will not cope with the 6S power supply. The flight controller will, but the motors won't. So stick to your 4S. I'm going to be trying this out with my new Dynegy 1500 and the old favourite 850 4S. And I'll also try the Lion pack. And bear in mind, it comes with the XT30 plug. So if you are going to use one of your packs with an XT60, you'll need a nice little converter, which looks something like this. I'll leave a link down below for you guys so you can check it out for yourself, but certainly handy to have for doing those out in the field conversions. Camera at the front, Caddx Ratel 2 FPV camera, very, very nice. I think that's going to produce some pretty specky analog pics. 4-inch props are preferred on this, guys. These are probably the best ones to have. Speaking of the camera, which is attached to our terrific little Zeus VTX at the rear here, this packs an absolute punch, guys. Pumps out 800 milliwatts of VTX power, which means you can push this thing to the limits. If you have Crossfire, I'm probably envisaging definitely a good 2.5 kilometers. I have recently taken my Rekon 5 out with the same 800 milliwatt VTX to over 2 kilometers, so make sure you check out that video. Just bear in mind that, yeah, it's pretty easy to go a long way with these, but remember, if you are heading back home again and you've got a bit of a headwind, yeah, you could run into some trouble. Which leads us on to our GPS and our buzzer, which is a really, really neat inclusion. That means that you can set up your GPS in Betaflight to have your failsafe return to home activated, which I will be doing in Betaflight, so stay tuned for that. And it's also got a nice little buzzer with its own power supply should you have a fall and your battery goes east and your quad goes west. It means you still have some noise for when you do your searching in the tall grass looking for it after it's possibly fallen from the sky. Flying with your Lion pack, you do have plenty of room. I probably wouldn't be attaching a GoPro full size on this, guys. It's probably a little bit too big, but with the included mount here, there is plenty of room. Oops, there is plenty of room to attach your slimline camera with your large Lion or LiPo without any trouble at all. With the 1404 2800 kV motors, it's going to give you plenty of thrust and plenty of torque to get this thing up in the sky with that added weight, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that at all. Really nice finish, as you'd expect, guys, from Rekon. They build some pretty decent gear. I've got quite a few of their quads and I really enjoy flying all of them. Okay, let's get it weighed in, see what we weigh in at. Straight off the shelf without any mods, we're looking at 143 grams, which is a nice and light place to start. Then we need to add our antenna, our SMO camera mount, and we put 4 props on. And don't forget, we also need a power supply, and that's going to bring your total up to 270 grams. HGLRC M80 GPS, which is actually a really, really good unit. You shouldn't have any trouble connecting to satellites like we do with some. I'll quickly plug and mention the Flywoo GPS takes a long time to lock into satellites, which is why I've invested with a little Vifly M8 external power supply GPS unit. Check that out on my video up on the screen there, guys. This enables you to warm up your GPS prior to plugging in any batteries and saves you a lot of messing around. It also has an independent beeper so that you can track it as well. So there's a nice little addition, but you won't need it with this one. It looks like a nice, stable, fun, well put together unit, guys. I think you'll agree. So what we're going to do now, guys, is I'm going to rip the top off and I'm going to install my Crossfire. Looking at the flight controller, you can see that the Rekon already comes supplied with 3 connected wires for your TBS in my case. So what I'm going to do is cut these to length. I'm going to solder the 4th one on for our telemetry out, of course. That's the soldering done. The 4 points to our Crossfire. Just make sure you have the receiver to the transmitter, transmitter to the receiver for your extra 2 wires. Before I put things back together, I do like to make sure that everything has been hooked up correctly. So I'm just going to power it up, and I'm just going to bind my TBS to my radio and make sure everything's good. If you're not too sure how to do this, once you have fired up your quad, head over to your Crossfire module on the rear. Long press the button and you'll see your XFTX light light up. So press that again, click down to bind, select bind, and it will pop up with update micro RX. So you click on OK, and it's a matter of just holding tight. You'll see your green LED stop flashing and your percentage going from 0 to 100.
And that will take not too long at all. It's on 28, 29, 30, 31, so let's just make that happen.
Once it's hit 100%, you'll see your green light rapidly flash and it says RX is loading, don't interrupt. So what this is doing is it's uniquely pairing it to your radio so that no one else will be attached to this if you're flying it in a group. Select general and we go from 8 channels and we just bump that up to 12 channels like so. We'll head back, and now I like to go down to channel map and I like to select channel 12, and that is going to be our telemetry. So we select channel 12 and then we just simply scroll through the settings until we find our RSSI LQ, so that's our link quality for our Crossfire. Simple as that, guys. We are now bound. Let's head over to Betaflight.
Welcome to OpenTX Disarmed Acro.
Okay, so hooked into Betaflight, USB micro all plugged in. I have my power supply ready. I've got this fluoro prop on just sitting there as I'm going to test out my motor direction with it. Okay, let's jump onto Betaflight and see what's what. You'll see straight away there is some data flash here, which means they have pre-configured this, which is excellent. So I haven't touched anything here. We have a serial RX on the UART1, GPS UART2, VTX UART3, and ESC telemetry on UART6. Configuration, you'll see motor direction has been reversed, so keep an eye on that. D-Shot 600, 8K, accelerometer, Rekon 4. Now, as I was putting on a Crossfire receiver, you'll need to change this to Crossfire depending on the model you've selected, so I did select that. I haven't touched anything here. Air mode, OSD and dynamic are all selected. Of course, we need our GPS on. You'll notice the GPS light up the top hasn't lit up yet because I haven't fired it up yet. So I'll just do that now. I've got my trusty homemade smoke stopper on here. All looks good. And you can see straight away the GPS has lit up, which is excellent. I did select RX lost and RX set for beepers, and everything else down below I have not touched. I've left power and battery the same. Now failsafe default is stage 1, so I'm going to put that on to stage 2, and I'm allowing my GPS rescue to return to home, maximum altitude, and I'm going to select 6 satellites is all I've ever really needed for this job. 876. So what this is going to do with my GPS rescue selected and 6 satellites, and I'm also going to uncheck allow arming without fix. So what that means, it will only take off when I have reached the minimum satellites, which is 6, which means I'm going to be able to return to home should I have an incident, which is ideal. Sanity checks failsafe only, and maximum altitude is what I return to home at. And these settings tend to work the best for me. It really doesn't return to home super fast, so with your GPS satellites set to a minimum, with the allow arming switched off, maximum altitude, which means it's certainly not going to hit anything on the way back to you. But bear in mind, if you have just flown it really high, it will go straight back up to that height before it slowly returns to you. I'll do a test of those on the field anyway. Okay, we'll do a save and reboot. Fit tuning, I haven't touched any of that, of course. Now receiver, make sure our receiver is bound correctly and our little picture down here is actually doing what it's meant to be doing. When we twist and turn the radio sticks, make sure you have your channel map set correctly. If you don't, when you do this, it will not correspond to the picture and you have all sorts of trouble. You'll see my aux8 is all the way up here. That's because I'm using the telemetry from the Crossfire receiver for my RSSI LQ. So that all looks pretty good. Our arms and everything are all set. I have my standard set up here for my modes. So I have arming, angle, horizon, GPS rescue,
Return to home. Return to home.
and my beeper. Excellent. Adjustments I haven't touched. Servos I haven't touched. It will say false here because I'm indoors, so there's going to be no lock under here. Motors. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make sure our motor direction is spinning correctly. So we'll start off with number 1. So what I like to do, guys, is just put a floppy motor on, power it up, and go to that corresponding motor and give it a spin and make sure it's spinning the right way. Excellent. So number 1's good. Let's go over to number 2, and don't spin these at full speed, guys, without a prop on, as you can damage the motor. So number 2 should be spinning in a clockwise direction, which it is. Down to number 3, and that should also be clockwise. Very good. And lucky number 4 for last should be spinning in an anti-clockwise direction. Excellent. Now, I didn't mention, guys, if you are going to do this and sit it here for a little while with the power supply connected, make sure you have got your VTX 25 watts of power so that it doesn't get too hot. Talking about the VTX, you can see it's set on tramp, race band. I haven't touched any of this. This is what I really like about HG LRC stuff. It just comes pre-configured. So race band channel 1, as I said, we can go all the way up to 800 milliwatts of power, which is awesome, and that's really good not to have to touch that at all. Okay, on screen display, you guys know where you guys like your things. I've just put all the things I need here for when I'm doing a semi long range flight. How many satellites I have, how fast I'm going, how many meters from home, my RSSI LQ. I like to have a temperature of the core, just because sometimes when you're sitting there waiting for it to find some GPS powers, you don't want it to get too hot. Your normal battery voltage and your VTX channel warnings and arrows, that's all pretty personal. guys, you know what you like there. So we'll hit save. So there you go, guys, as simple as that. We shall turn the power supply off, and you will shortly hear that emergency beeper that goes off.
Telemetry lost.
It does it every time when you pull the battery out, so it takes about around a minute to set it off. And there you have it. So that will happen every time, however, a small price to pay, especially when you want to go find your quad. There we have it, guys, back together again. Quite, yeah, pretty easy job putting that Crossfire receiver underneath there. So what I've actually done is I've actually lifted up the rubber there so that the cable tie isn't overlapping the rubber, so it should be nice and flush, nice and clean for my LiPo mount, and it's also nicely tucked out of the way.
Inactivity alarm.
The setup configuration and all you need to know and do before you get your Rekon 4 flying. Fairly lengthy video, folks, so I will be doing part B very shortly, which is going to be its maiden flight. However, if you've stuck with me this long, I am going to fire it up and just make sure I've got those props on the right way. I'm just waiting for a GPS fix, minimum of 6 satellites. I don't need my goggles because I'm using a Lua script here, and as soon as I have hit my 6 satellites, it's going to tell me.
GPS fix.
Okay, that's our GPS fix.
GPS fix.
Yes, it is fixed. I'm just going to have a quick launch, make sure the prop's on correctly, and have a listen. Let's say the props are on correctly. If the props weren't on correctly, it would make all sorts of noise right now. Okay. I can safely report the props are on well, so if you want to have a look at the prop configuration for yourself, just pause that screen and there you are. Next video, range test, flight test, see how she flies, see if it freestyles at all, and see how it compares with its older brother. Smash on that bell, guys, drop me a comment. Thanks very much for sticking with me right to the end of this video, much appreciated. See you next time. Bye for now.